Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is for all the students out there. It's getting pretty close to exam time, and with exams mostly online this year, it's a lot different than what you're probably used to. So with today's video, I'll be going through how to ace your online exams. So back when I was in school, I had taken online classes, so I'm pretty familiar with doing online exams. So I'll be giving you guys all the info that you need to ace your online exams so that you do not have to stress. I'll be going through three major things: how to schedule study time, what to study, and then what you want to have on hand during your exam. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that I'll be covering is how to schedule your study time. So this is pretty different for everybody because obviously everybody has their own preferences, but there's one rule that I like to follow and it worked really well for me when I was taking exams both in high school and at university. And the rule is, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a math equation here, is basically how many exams you have. So let's say you have 4 exams, minus 1 is the number of weeks out from that exam that you want to start studying. So if you have 4 exams, like I said, then 4 obviously minus 1 equals 3. So 3 weeks out from that first exam, you want to start studying. And another tip to that is to count the weeks out starting with the day before your first exam. That way you're scheduling in a way that you'll have the day before your exam to kind of brush up on everything and review everything the night before. So obviously everybody's exam times are different depending on what school you go to. Some people have it in November at the very end, some people have it in December, some people even have it in January. So it's all dependent on your school, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to use a really quick example. Let's say that your exams are December 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. So you have 4 exams from the 8th to the 11th. So what you're going to do is you're going to start on the 7th and you're going to count backwards 3 weeks, because with that little equation that I told you, it's 4 minus 1 equals 3. Obviously, you guys know that. So if we go back 3 weeks, then you're going to start studying on November 16th. So that's just a little rule that I try to use to help guide me when I'm trying to figure out how much study time I'll need depending on how many exams I have. And from there, I would say no matter how many exams you have, even if it's just 2, maybe it's just 1, regardless, every single exam that you have, you want to schedule 4 study sessions per exam. So if you have 4 exams like the example that I showed, then you're going to obviously have 4 times 4, which is 16. So you need to schedule 16 study sessions in those 3 weeks out from your first exam. So these study sessions are completely up to you how you split them up. You can do them one after the other. You can do them every other day. As long as you make sure that you get in those 4 study sessions for every single one of your exams, then you're going to be on track and ready when it comes exam time. So you're probably wondering, what are these study sessions about? Why do you need to do 4? The reason why is because each of these study sessions is going to tackle a different area that's going to help you get ready for your exam. So for session number 1, this is really going to be about creating and reviewing your study notes for the first half of the exam. So let's say your exam is a full semester exam and it's going to be on all 12 weeks of class. You're going to split that in half and you're going to study the first 6 weeks. So everything from class, everything from your readings, everything from assignments in those first 6 weeks is what you're going to be working on in that first study session. So you're going to be creating your notes. So basically, if you've been taking notes throughout class on your readings and in class, then you're already going to have most of this ready. So you're just going to pull the most important information from each week and put it in a new Word doc or Google Doc, whatever you like to use, and then you'll have the most important information from each week for you to study. So once you've gathered all of that information, from there you're going to review all of those notes and obviously start studying. So depending on what kind of online exams you have, you're going to have to study differently. If you have an open book exam where you can reference your notes during the exam, then you're going to want to make sure that your notes are in tip-top shape, easy to read and review and all of that. If you have the type of exam where you can't use your notes, then you're going to have to kind of study and memorize. So once you finish that first study session where you've created notes and reviewed them for the first half of what will be on the exam, now you're moving on to session number 2. So session number 2 is pretty similar to session number 1, except now you're going to do everything you did in session number 1, but for the second half of what will be on the exam. So if again your exam is on all 12 weeks of class, then now you're going to be creating and reviewing study notes for the last 6 weeks of class. So same concept, class notes, reading notes, anything else that's relevant from the last 6 weeks, you want to review all of that in session number 2. Then from there, you're going to move on to session number 3. And this is where things are going to get a little bit different. So in session number 3, you're going to want to be creating your textbook sticky notes and reviewing case studies. So later in this video, I'll be going through exactly what textbook sticky notes are and what kind of case studies you need to review, but for the third session, you're really going to dedicate it to those two things. From there, now you are finally on your fourth session. So for the fourth session, I usually put it on a day or two before my exam, but it's completely up to you. Again, you can choose whenever you want to schedule these sessions. So for this session, it's going to be the final review time. So this is where you're going to review everything that you've done so far. So you're going to review everything from session 1, everything from session 2, everything from session 3. So you're really going to spend this time reviewing everything and making sure that you're on top of everything and you're ready and prepared for your exam. Okay, so from there, now that I've gone through exactly how to schedule all of your study time and what kind of study sessions you should have, I'll be going through exactly what you need to be studying. So the first thing that you need to be studying is pretty obvious. It's going to be all the important concepts that you learned in class. So if there were concepts that your prof flagged to you that were really important concepts or concepts that came up multiple times throughout different classes, then those are probably the most important concepts and are most likely going to be on the exam. The concepts that are discussed in class maybe once for 15 minutes are less likely to have a big part on the exam. So big concepts and important concepts that you know your prof told you were important or that you just know for yourself are important are a big area of focus that you want to have when you're studying. Next is important definitions and terms. So if you have a textbook for your class, you've probably already seen within the textbook, usually they have a section where it's bolded terms with definitions of exactly what those terms mean. And usually there's a lot of questions like that on exams where they're asking you what something means. So important definitions that were used in class or in readings are something that you really want to focus on and make sure that you have down packed and that you know exactly what they are, because honestly, even if you have an open book exam, trying to search up every definition, you're going to run out of time so quickly. So if your plan is to go in and kind of look up definitions as they come up, that is not a good plan. So do not do that plan. Make sure you have the definitions already down and reviewed. Next, after that is concepts from assignments. This is a huge one that people always forget. I forgot this one multiple times and then ended up struggling so much on exams because a lot of times you finish an assignment and you just think you're done with it, but there are those sneaky profs who are going to take a concept or something that was super relevant to an assignment and put it right on the exam and think that you're going to remember it. So review all of your assignments and make sure that you know all the main concepts that are important to that assignment and examples that are used in that assignment, because you don't want to get in a position where you've studied everything except your assignments and then that's what comes up on the exam. And then the last thing that you really want to focus on studying are case studies. So if you remember, I mentioned this earlier in the video when I was talking about session number 3 that you want to be reviewing case studies. So just to give a little bit more detail on what that is now, what you want to do is look back on any important case studies that were brought up throughout the semester. So if there's a specific case study that you reviewed in class or that your prof told you to read, any of those real life examples that your prof went through in class or gave to you as homework are really useful for reviewing, because there's a pretty high chance that a similar type of example or problem could come up on the exam. And if you've reviewed the case studies and examples that are relevant to your class, then you're already going to know the solutions and what your prof is looking for. So just make sure that you have those reviewed and you don't forget about them, because sometimes you just think it's an example your prof used in class to make you understand better, but really it's something that's going to end up being on the exam. Okay, so that's it for the things that you need to study. Now I'm going to be going through things that you want to have on hand with you during your exam. So again, this is going to vary based on what type of online exam you have, but the first thing that you want to have on hand with you during your exam are your textbook sticky notes. So if you remember, this is something that I also mentioned earlier in the video alongside the case studies in session number 3. So this is mainly going to be useful if you have online exams that are open book. If you don't, then you can also do this, you just won't be able to use it during the exam. But basically, these textbook sticky notes are going to be sticky notes that you put at the most relevant chapters in your textbook. So chapters from your textbook that you know have relevant information that are going to be on your exam, you are going to create basically a summary on a sticky note of what is exactly in that chapter. So go through your textbook and really figure out which of the chapters are the most relevant for the exam, and you're going to create sticky notes for those chapters where you're going to write what major concepts are covered in those chapters and what pages they're on. That way, during the exam, if there's something that you just really cannot find in your study notes, you really just can't remember, you can quickly reference the textbook, go to the chapter, look at the top, read exactly what's in that chapter, and once you find what you're looking for, you know exactly what page it is, and you can just go there quickly, skim it, and then continue the exam. It makes your life so much easier than trying to look through the textbook and find an answer when you already have a small amount of time to complete the exam in the first place. So honestly, these textbook sticky notes are are really going to be a lifesaver, especially for definitions and examples that you might have forgotten about. You can go back and find it quickly and save yourself during an exam. The next thing that you want to have on hand with you during your exam is obviously your study notes. So all of those notes that you spent so much time in your study session number 1 and 2 creating, you want to have those on hand to reference if you need during the exam. Again, if you're somebody that is being watched during your exam, you obviously can't use these, so you're just going to have to put in that extra study time to make sure that you remember everything from your notes. But for those that can, having these study notes on hand are going to be super useful to reference during the exam, and you can even do the same thing that you did with the textbook sticky notes. If you have a ton of study notes and you're going to end up losing track of things, you can do the same thing and create sticky notes for your study notes and put them at the top of each page so that you know what's on each page. But that is up to you. That's an optional step and not completely necessary. It really depends on how many study notes you have. I feel like I've said the word notes like a million times now, and it's driving me crazy how many times I've said it, but anyways, the next thing you want to have on hand with you are your case studies. So remember when we talked about earlier about reviewing your case studies and examples that were given in class? You want to have a copy of those, whether that be printed, written down. You just want to have a physical copy of those that you can reference them just like your study notes. So in case there is an example or case study that comes up on your exam that's similar to one that you did earlier in the semester, then you're probably going to be so happy to know that you have your case studies right there so that you can review the solutions and apply a similar process to the case study or real life example that is on the exam. So after that, the final thing that you want to have on hand with you are your past assignments. So like I mentioned before, assignment concepts and assignments can come up on exams and catch you off guard. So you want to have those assignments on hand just in case you need to reference it, just to jog your memory, or if there's something specific from the assignment that's asked on the exam, that way you have it in case you need it. So that's pretty much it for all of the things that you want to have on hand with you during your exam. Again, this is going to be mostly useful for those that have an open book exam and are able to review their notes during the exam. But if you're somebody that does not have that luxury and you're being watched during your exam, then you still want to gather up all of these things to have them to review up until just before the exam starts, because it's just a great way to jog your memory and make sure that it's all fresh in your mind. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that this video helped prepare you guys a little bit better for your upcoming exams. I know that things are really weird and different knowing that most of your exams are online, if not all of them. So hopefully you learned a few things and you used some of the things that I mentioned. Let me know in the comments down below, how many exams do you have? When do your exams start? I would love to know and see how it varies. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video and you're looking for more tips for your online classes, I have videos on how to reduce stress in your online classes, how to stay organized in your online classes. So I'll link that all down below and at the end of the video, just in case you want to watch those too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and the notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos on school and life advice. See you guys next time. Bye!